Hey guys, Chris the Ultimate Recycler. Welcome back to the channel. I'm at the back room in the shop. We've just had a fairly busy Saturday. Christine's gone home. I'm going to tackle something else out of my storeroom here. Now, it's dawned on me that I've got this playlist for the great storage shed cleanup at home, the emergency storage shed, and I think we're up to part 6. And every now and again I'm getting stuff out of here, so I think I've done 3 or 4 videos of stuff from here. I may as well turn that into a playlist as well. So we now have the great shop storeroom clean out, and that also includes remodeling it to make a bit of a workshop. I think one video I showed you how I built a bench out there. So we might as well turn this into a playlist as well, and I think you guys like having a series to follow, and I'll alternate here between home as well as other repair jobs. Enough of that, let's get to it. I've moved a few things around in there. I have made some progress, but it's pretty messy. Let's go and have a look. So I have something to go through and show you guys in this episode. It's a kind of an unboxing of some really early papers and things, but I'll show you what I'm up to in here. At this stage, it just looks like an absolute jumble, and it is. But I'm trying to make some room in the center, and I'll take you around there if we can get through. I've been moving this cabinet towards this way. I'm trying to pivot it across so that we've got room. I'll show you what I mean. Let's squeeze through here. Underneath this huge pile is that workbench I made, so that's pretty well non-existent at the moment. This shelf is cleaned up totally except for those 2 old suitcases, and that's what I'm going to show you in today. We've got some really early mystery stuff in there, mostly paperwork, but all sorts of cool stuff. The rest of the shelf is empty, and if we span around the corner here, you can see that I've opened up the center here and made some floor space. Now I've been pivoting this shelf across, and I'll just step up to the other end. I'll go and stand in that little alcove, and we've got a view from this end. So I'm going to try and angle that shelf a bit further across to the right so that the shelf on the wall can swing across in here, and I can get that right out of the road because I need to free up that wall over there. So we need to juggle it just a bit further, and I don't want to empty it. I'm just trying to shuffle it across on the concrete, and then once we can get that end of that white shelf towards me, it can slide its back along here to make a wall of shelves in the center here, and then I can start moving some stuff back and finding that workbench again. It's a real juggle here. It's like an 8-foot tall guy trying to put on a jumper in a mini miner. There's just no room to move. So I've shoved stuff in all the little gaps here. I've filled all the shelves, and we'll be going through this at some stage and probably doing some eBay work. Those shelves are both empty, but I had nowhere to put them, and I couldn't get them out of the room, so hopefully they're out of the road enough to slide this white shelf through. Let's take these 2 suitcases through to the counter, and we'll have a look at those in a tick, and then I'll try and move these shelves. Okay, let's see if this cabinet will slide anymore without knocking everything off the top. Okay, I think the white shelf might fit past it now. Very good. We mightn't be able to get out of here. I think I'll go past and go out the other side. Now, if I push this up towards you, I won't be able to get my camera, although I might be able to reach over the back. We'll see how we go. Doesn't slide very well on the concrete. Okay, I can just reach the camera from behind. Okay, can we get back around this side now? We've opened up the wall, and we've got to slide this shelf a bit further along. And now we'll see if we can put this shelf back without breaking anything. God, it's got heavier. So that's enough progress for today in here. We've now freed up the wall, and I can put a couple of shelf units down low, and then I can clean off this pigeonhole area, and that can screw to the wall over there, which gives me some workbench back. That was the plan. So now I can put some stuff back in this shelf unit. Now it's out of the road. It's flush this end with that cabinet, which is just what I wanted. And we still will have access in there once I get those two middle shelves out. So that'll do for here. Let's go and have a look and see what was in those suitcases. Okay, there's a lot of stuff in these suitcases. We might just go through some of it and we'll do the rest in another part. This is an old case full of old paperwork and just bits of ephemera, which they call, which is basically paper collectibles and history that wasn't printed to be kept. It's not made as a collectible. And there's all sorts of local stuff here. So as we go through this, I'll tell you why I like getting this stuff and why it's great to go through. Okay, I'll stand beside you here and hopefully we get some good vision. A lot of this was saved from some deceased estates I cleaned out, an old shed that the new owners of the property wanted cleaned out, and in another case the family didn't want any of it and they were just going to burn it. So I basically said, look, I'll go through it all, I'll salvage what I can and I'll work out a price for you, which I've done long ago. I've owned these for over 10 years and I've been meaning to get back through it. This is a Carols by Candlelight brochure for my local town here, for Nagambie, in 1954. So there's absolutely no commercial value here. It's really just the words to the songs. It was printed in Nagambie. There's no printers here. Hasn't been for a long time. So I think that needs to be kept for local history, for prosperity, for whatever other reason. There's another thing out here which is really cool, and this is the sort of stuff I really like saving. It's a salon, like a hairdressing in Nagambie. The phone number is 10. Now, most of you will not remember manual exchanges when you just had really low digit numbers. You didn't have a dial on your phone. You just actually had to ask for what number you wanted. This is a complimentary little needle kit. Still got some of the needles in it. From a Nagambie business. There's a calendar on the back, 1961. This is the stuff that just doesn't survive and gets thrown out. I'm going to make up a folder of all the local paraphernalia, business brochures, ephemera basically, of what I've collected from a local area. It probably one day will end up in the museum, but I just like saving it and collecting it. I could maybe put this in the shop for $5. It may or may not sell. It would probably end up in the museum anyway, so I'll just make a collection of that sort of stuff. Here's another one, Susan Salon, the same phone number, same era I would imagine, 1964. What was that, 1961? So they obviously did this each year. And we have needles still intact. Really cool. There's a brochure here for a movie camera. Probably not much value in that one. Looks maybe 1960s. We have some more camera gear. We have an operating manual for a Pentax camera. This may well have a market on eBay. With the original receipt, dated 1971, $126. That's a lot of money back in 1971 for a camera. So it's probably a much better camera than the average. So I might look at eBaying that one with the receipt with it. And now we have an instruction book for a mixer. This would be very much 1960s, I would say. May even be 50s, you know. They're not always dated. General Electric Australia. I do have a folder for vintage owner's manuals and instruction booklets. Probably just have $5 on that. It's not something I'd keep. And we have Armadale Baptist Church, Kooyong Road. So that's March 1903. Now that's early. So that's just a church newsletter. 1903. Nothing to do with the local town here again. It would have been a Melbourne, Kooyong Roads in Melbourne. Armidale, yeah. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that. It doesn't have any value to me as far as local history goes, but maybe it might do well on eBay. But certainly shouldn't be thrown out. I don't like history like this being thrown out. Here we have Melbourne Olympics. That's 1960. Olympic Handbook. The Olympic Cavalcade. Advertisements for cigarettes. You don't see that these days. So they have some really cool old ads in here. Obviously this is collectible for the Olympic collectors, and it also has Olympic tyres as an advertiser, and the latest photographic equipment. That's in pretty good condition actually. That would possibly eBay too. I'll have to check eBay on these. So it's going to take ages to go through this if we do. I'll just pull out some interesting stuff. There's Nagambie again, Jeff's Quality Meats, High Street Nagambie, phone Nagambie 179. I would say 1970s by the look of the colour and the fonts. Again, probably doesn't give us a date. We do have some metric conversion figures, so it's after 1966. It's certainly going to be in the 70s. It might go into my recipe book area for $5, and there's another recipe one here. Although we might keep that for seeing so it's Nagambie, and this one is Nagambie Primary School Mothers Club recipes. So a lot of the schools' mothers clubs used to make recipe books as fundraisers, and that's probably got some tried and true recipe. Egg and asparagus casserole, not so keen on asparagus. Mushroom savouries, quick apple sponge, do like an apple sponge. So yeah, there's lots in that. That's in very good condition. Do we have a date? Again, I would say it's probably 1970s. Certainly looks 70s on the front. No date in it. But that's Nagambie paraphernalia. Probably should be in the museum, these ones. And just something like this that hardly ever got kept. It's just a paper bag. Compliments from Simpsons News Agency, Nagambie, phone 59. That's the sort of stuff I love to save, because who keeps a paper bag? Remember someone too nice to forget, with greeting cards, gift wraps, gift ties from Sands. Sands made games too, I think. Great piece, that one. No value at all, but great local history. We have, oh, this is an old book, 1933. An exhibition of drinking glasses, books and documents. So this must have been for some sort of big exhibition, perhaps in Melbourne. Oh yeah, that's got a wealth of information in it. That's quite possibly an eBay item, that one. Don't know what value would it have, I'd have to check that. And here's a lot of this. I remember saving a lot of this. Old receipts from Cowan & Co. General Merchants in Nagambie. And it's basically someone's shopping list. £1, 5 shillings, and they got a whole list of stuff I can read. Bacon, velvet, probably velvet soap, Vitabrits, I can't read, tobacco, newspapers maybe, sugar. There you go, £1.50 for a whole shopping list. So there's a whole heap of these, and these, certainly some examples of this should be kept for local history. But again, no commercial value at all. There's lots of other receipts here. The Nagambie Times, a newspaper, 1951. And I don't even know what this big folded up one is. Maybe a map. Maybe a treasure map. Oh, it is a map too. How cool is this? Plan of training area, Seymour. Alright, rather than go through all the little bits of paper and probably bore you silly, I've folded out this map, and I can't find a date on it. I reckon it would be probably 1940s, maybe even a little earlier. I've tried to work out the roads, and they're so much different to how they are today. There's no major freeway bypassing the town, and there's roads that I know I can kind of identify in here, and they're called different things. So it's a really cool map. It's very large. It takes over all of Christine's counter, and I'm going to see if I can find a large frame for that. That would look magnificent all framed on the wall. And this is the sort of stuff that I just love to save. Value-wise, I think if I got a frame big enough for this and it came up well, I'd probably have a couple $100 on it, because look, where do you find another one? But I'd just like to preserve it, and it's just going to get knocked around, folded up like a map, and the paper's quite delicate. So it's a great piece. I'm really happy that this was in here, and whenever I obviously saved it, it was a good move. So what I'm going to do with this old suitcase full of stuff, I've just packed it up for now, but I'll go through it when I have a little bit more time. I'll sort the contents into local history stuff that I think I might put in a little folder and just give to the museum, because they'll know how to preserve it better. Some of the stuff, especially paper items, will continue to decay unless it's in acid-proof wrapping paper and all sorts of stuff like that. So I'll give it to the museum where it will be saved. Anything that's not relating to town that I think I'll sell, I'll make a separate pile, and we'll go through that at the end of this video. And then perhaps in the next video we'll do the other suitcase, because there's some pretty cool stuff in there as well. Okay guys, we've just finished another busy day in the shop, and I thought I'd get back to this pile of paperwork and show you what I found. These are all Nagambie related receipts, including some from the 60s, where they obviously had cash registers that could print out receipts. That's dated 1963, and you saw most of the other stuff. There was a lot of early dockets under there. So that's going to the museum. And something else I'll show you shortly. There's also some from different towns. These ones are from Rushworth, which is a nearby town. This one's from the Lands Department. Still got the old Australian stamps on it. There's a hardware and timber merchant, and another business here, drapery, clothing, frocks and millinery. Millinery was hatware, I think. So I will contact, I think there's a museum in Rushworth, or at least there'll be a historical society. They're not super early to be really valuable, but they're things that should be kept. I think these were 1940s. There's also similar dockets from Shepparton, which is probably the biggest city in the district, and well, it is, and it's about 40 minutes away. So next time I'm up there, I know they have a museum up there, and hopefully they'll preserve those. Now, as well as these receipts, I found some Nagambie newspapers. Now, it's been a long time. Actually, we still have a Community Voice newspaper, but it's been a long time since Nagambie has had the Nagambie Times. This one dates to 1958, and there's some earlier ones in here. Some of them aren't in the best condition. This is the Nagambie Times 1935, and then there was a couple from the 1920s. This one's 1942. There's the Cowan & Co. General Merchants we saw the receipts for. I think this one, next one's the oldest one. Oh no, there's another one a little bit earlier. This one's 1928. So we're getting back a bit there. And I think the other one here was, this one here's 1926. So we're almost at 100 years old. So these, there's a few others from the 50s. So these are going to definitely go up to the museum. I don't know if they've got copies of the papers. I do vaguely remember hearing that there was a fire many years ago and they lost a lot of copies of early newspapers. So even though they're not in very good condition, they're still a great window into Nagambie's history, particularly all the adverts. It's amazing to see all the different businesses that were in town over the years. So those with the receipts will go off to the museum next time they're open. And here's some of the other stuff we got out of the suitcase. We've seen those ones. I'll quickly flick through these and then I'll show you the notepad I made with some prices. There's a 1959 fishing, boating and hunting booklet, and it's quite a detailed booklet in pretty good condition. We have a little piece of paper here that's a broadcast listener's license. Now, this is dated the Broadcasting Act was 1942. This particular receipt was 1947, and it cost 20 shillings for a 12-month period to buy a license to listen to your radio. Now, many of you probably won't know that you actually had a license. I believe you also had to have a license to have a TV, or at least have a reception. So this was stamped in Nagambie. It must have been paid perhaps at the post office. And 20 shillings is a fair bit of money to pay for 12 months to be able to listen to your radio. How about that? There's a really early book here, Private Lecture to Youths and Young Men, and it's dated 1883. So that's pretty interesting. It's a little rough, but it's I read a couple of pages before and it's quite interesting. So that's a very early piece of ephemera. I did find one online actually, and it didn't bring very much. A lot of this paperwork doesn't bring much dollar-wise. This is a handbook for wool growers. I think this was 1950. And of course, the property I got a lot of this off was a farming family. Yep, so that's of interest to primary producers. Likewise, this is a wool waybill book, which is essentially when you consign your wool clip to a dealer who sells your wool for you. And it's a fairly early book. You'll see the date there is 19, and it's obviously before 1920. And I think there was actually a receipt in here for something. Here we go. And that looks like it was 1913. So they sent 1 bale of fleeces and 3 bales of fleeces all up, and 4 bags of wool. Might have been just like the skirtings or something. So yeah, interesting piece of history. Not a lot in it, just a few pages. Obviously a lot of the dockets have been torn out, but a nice piece of early agricultural piece of interest. Now we have a book on crystal sets, early radios, including some circuit designs, and this is quite interesting. I think this would date to the 50s. Oh, here we go, yep. 5th impression, 1957, and that's a pretty cool book. I did find a few of them online. A couple of the pages are starting to fall out, so I don't think it's worth a great deal, and it is a little bit moth-eaten on the front. And we had this is a card album from cereal packets. We had Wheaties, Vitabrits and Crispies, and you would collect the cards from the packets of cereal and stick them into your album. So they're not rare. These turn up, and they did these right through the 50s and 60s and even into the 70s. And then, of course, you got little plastic toys in your cereal packets from then too. This is in very poor condition. I did find one online that sold for a fair bit. I think it was about $70 or $80. I think it's probably worth only about 10 in that condition. There was a little booklet here on radio engineering with a lot of charts and things. Again, 1950s or so. And a real photograph selection from the Grampians. It's a large mountain range in Victoria, and they're all real photos. It's like a souvenir pack, and a lot of times back in the early days not every family had a camera, and instead of taking your own shots, if you did have a camera, you could just simply buy real photos of where you'd been. So a nice little set there. All the photos are in there. Again, these things are fairly common because a lot of people bought them and a lot of people kept them, and they do turn up quite regularly. But a nice little set, and certainly worth some money. The only other thing in the box here was 3 journals here from the Gilpin Society and from, I've only had a quick look, I think it's something to do with musicians, history of music and all sorts of things like that. I found quite a few of these online and they weren't really selling at all. And they're not overly old. This is late 70s to 1980. So not a lot of value there. So that brings us to the notepad. And there are a couple of other special items I'll show you right at the end. Now, I've checked eBay on just about all this stuff, including the things I mentioned earlier about whether I could eBay them or not. Generally, you can find something pretty close to give you a guide, and I'd much prefer to sell them in the shop than on eBay because I don't have fees, obviously, and I don't have to post it. Some prices are all over the shop. The radio license, I found a few of those, and one sold for near $50, but most of them were just all buy it now prices. So unless I saw multiple auctions with multiple bids, I'm not confident of getting a big dollars for it. I'm happy to get $5 in the shop for it. So most of it was $5 or $10, as you can see there. If we scan down to the bottom there, $125 out of that one suitcase at very realistic prices, I think, to sell through the shop. And all that was basically saved, pretty much saved from a bonfire. There's a couple of bonuses here I'll show you in a tick. And of course, we had that big map. Now, I need to investigate a way of framing it. I did look up the price of acrylic or perspex, and it's very expensive. So if you've got any ideas on how to frame that big map, let me know. Now these two I think are the jewels in the crown. I couldn't find much online about them. I did find, this is a 1962 I think. It did have a date. Gibson guitar catalogue. And I think I saw 1960, 1962, something like that. But I found one online that was a reproduced version, like a copy, and it sold for $100 odd in the US. This one is a little bit moth-eaten, but it's in great condition inside. Gibson, of course, are extremely famous for their guitars. I'm not a musician, but I know that there's certain model Gibson guitars that are worth a lot of money. Very collectible. They also had amplifiers and even banjos, I believe. There's some of their amplifiers. So this catalogue is in great condition. I don't know that it's a price list as well. I didn't see any prices, but purely just as a reference, as a catalogue. They had keyboards too. It could be quite sought after by collectors. There's banjos at the back. Are they banjos? They're mandolins. And there's banjos. So I think that's well worth putting on eBay, given that I couldn't find an original one and I found that the reproduction one made pretty good money. It was a buy it now, so I don't always trust the buy it now prices. But we're going to eBay that one, and I will bring you the results in the next part. Likewise, I couldn't find one of these Atom chainsaw workshop manuals. Now, chainsaws are starting to become quite collectible. I have a lot of people call in the shop after them. Atom, I think, were an Australian-made saw, and it's quite a detailed workshop manual, and it's in pretty good condition, other than the cover being very grubby. And it's quite a detailed workshop manual too. There's not just a couple of pages. It's very detailed. It shows you troubleshooting. I think it gives a breakdown of exactly how to dismantle and completely rebuild the engine, basically. And also in the back, how to reassemble the saw. And in the back is an exploded parts view. So I think any collector would find this very useful information. And it's not something that you're going to find a reprinted version of, because I don't think there was that many Atom chainsaws out there. So that could do quite well on eBay as well. I'll bring you the results of those in the next part, but I'm probably going to start the Gibson one at $50. I think I might start the Atom chainsaw manual at about $30. I'll run them as an auction though, and we'll see how we go from there. So we'll finish this video up here, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. I find paperwork fascinating. It's a real window into the past, as I said before. So we'll get on to eBaying those two items, and you'll see a report on those in the next episode of this series. And because we're running them as an eBay auction, we might film the end of the auction and just see if there's any real interest in them. In the meantime, thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next video. I'm off to catch up on Nagambi's latest news and have a cup of tea. See you then. Bye for now.